What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I guess we got to talk about a potential new Xbox coming out. This is not what I thought we'd wake up to on a Monday. Now, this comes from a pretty, well-known Call of Duty leaker. I guess take that for what it's worth, right? He's done Call of Duty stuff. From what I have seen, people have very split opinions on this guy. They either think, at one point, people thought he was, the absolute greatest, and then now the opinions kind of split. Some people say he hasn't gotten things right in, 2-3 years. I don't know. Ultimately, if he leaks Call of Duty, could that lead to him knowing about Xbox and Microsoft's inner workings? I guess. But the first tweet he literally says, take it with a huge grain of salt. And then he proceeds to have incredible confidence about everything else he says afterwards. So it's I think it's just kind of weird and all. We'll talk about it. We'll see if it ends up happening. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So let's go over this first, and I'll go over kind of my opinion of it after. So this comes from Ghost of Hope. And like I said, his first line is important, although he kind of disregards it later. Take this with a huge grain of salt. I'm hearing that the next Xbox console is still coming in 2026 and will be called Xbox Prime. Still unclear if it's a code name or the actual name. I've heard Infinity Ward's next COD is still being considered a day one release for this. And this was in response, actually back in May 17th of 2024, he actually said the same thing. Hearing from a trusted source that the next Xbox is planned to be released in late 26, very likely that COD is a day one release for it. Okay, so that's the first part of it. Then maybe I think 6 minutes later, he drops the whole take it with a grain of salt. Now it's just a thing. I know people don't believe it, but Xbox's next console being in 2026 is pretty much an open secret within the industry. Seems early, but I think it makes sense with where Xbox is headed. Okay, so third tweet, more about the strategy, I guess. He says, I think this is why they're pushing for 2026. Yep, name sounds corny, but it fits if there's a big push for day one games on Game Pass right away, and they get a jump on PS6. Big risk, but huge reward if it pays off. And then final one, somebody actually asked Jez Corden about it to see if he knows, and he said, I asked Jez for corroboration on this a few weeks ago, and he didn't have the sources to corroborate it or debunk it. Now, the whole thing, take it for what it's worth. Have fun with it for once in our lives. Jez Corden, I don't know, 50-50. He is probably the most 50-50 leaker of all time because he does get stuff right, but he'll have losing streaks longer than I've seen anybody else have. Tom Henderson doesn't have losing streaks, even Jeff Grubb doesn't. Jez Corden gets 5 things wrong in a row, then he'll kind of rebound. So again, it is what it is. I don't really care. Here's the thing. If a console does come out in 2026, that's interesting, right? I like consoles. I like new generations. I just wonder, what is it, right? So you're looking at, almost 2 years from now. I'll round kind of backwards, but it's before. In fact, it's 2 years before. Remember the court documents back with the FTC and all that stuff. 2028 was supposed to be the year, right? That was, I think, the year that Xbox kind of predicted or thought that PlayStation was going to do something, and I think it's when they were going to do something. So now I think it should be 2027. That's that 7 year, right? 2020 to 2027. If it's 2028, I guess it's again 2028. 2026 would be 2 full years, though, before those court documents were talking about it. So that, to me, throws it in the air and says, are they actually going to do a 0.5, a PS5 Pro? Is that what this is? Or is it literally a next-gen console? The thing is, and this could just be the era that I started getting into games. So, I know Xbox 360 beat the PS3, right? There was a big gap between when those two came out. But since then, they've come out a couple weeks apart, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks apart, when you had PS4, Xbox One, and then this newer generation. I'm not used to it. That's just a personal thing. I'm not used to one manufacturer, one company saying, you know what, we're going to go and we're going to do the next gen an entire year before the competition does. Now, I feel like there are kind of limitations, almost quiet limitations to doing that, right? Because you can't really have one do it without the other when you have the companies that are making games for it, right? Wouldn't that kind of stretch them too far and say, okay, well, now we got to make games for the next gen Xbox, which is so different than what we just had for Xbox, and then also we have the current gen PlayStation, which, by the way, for third-party games generally always outsells the Xbox version. So how is that? And I'm just saying, how would that actually work? And is that, I'm not, I guess, allowed? Like, can you actually have a next gen? And that's why, again, I actually kind of lean towards like a PS5 Pro situation where it's like a mid-gen refresh, even though it actually wouldn't be in the middle, right? Because it'd be 2 years away. Maybe it would be to get rid of the Series S. I don't know. I honestly do not know. But I just wonder, because if the PlayStation 1 is 2 years after that, that is an enormous jump on next gen. But then also it's like, well, can companies actually handle that? Companies can barely handle optimizing 3 Series S, X, and PS5. They can barely handle that, and that's being generous to them. Okay, so I don't know. I really don't know how that would end up going. Now, again, like him knowing about Call of Duty, right? The COD would be the launch title. That kind of makes sense, right? Because if he knows about Call of Duty, maybe that's how he knows that, because it's a Call of Duty thing, and it's a launch title. That's how it gets connected to the Xbox. And then, I will say this, okay? Xbox Prime, it does sound goofy. I gotta be real. I kind of like it. Honestly, I don't know. Like, I've never, I don't know. I've never hated them. I think, consoles are consoles, and the names are kind of like, I don't know, like entrenched in history. I don't really know what to say. Like PlayStation, they're kind of easy, just PS blank, right? But like 360, I thought that was good. Xbox One, I thought was a little backwards thinking, and then the series type console, a little cliche. So I don't know. I mean, if you call it Xbox Prime, I think to Optimus personally, and that's okay. I think so. I don't know, people. I would say the conversation around the console right now that I'm seeing is more about that name than like anything else I just talked about. Where it's like, does it make sense? Would it matter? Would it sell? That's another one. Like, are we expecting it again? Like, is it replacing one of them because you already have 2 of them? And then if it is like a 0.5, well, now you have like your really weaker version in the S. Then you have like the most powerful console on the face of the earth in the X. And then you have the Pro version of it, right? The Prime. Or if it's literally the next Xbox, then okay, I guess it's the next Xbox. We're leaving behind the Series S and X, only 6 years after, too. That would be one of the shorter generation lifespans, which would kind of be interesting. But as he does say, Prime is not, by the way, guaranteed to be the name. I still like the idea, by the way, of 720. I mean, let's kick it back. Let's go retro, honestly, for my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.